All right, welcome to another episode of Conspiracy Social Club, aka Deep Waters. First off, I got to tell you guys where I'm going to be this New Year's Eve, December 31st, January 1, January 2, Phoenix, Arizona, stand up live. Then Port Charlotte, Florida. Where is that? I don't know. But I'll be at the Visani Theater January 7, 8, and 9. Then, as if that's not enough, we got Nashville, Tennessee at Zanies, February 11th, 12th, and 13th. I think I'm going to be in Chicago, too, somewhere in January.
I hope they fixed the wall at Zanies. Did you see that? A truck drove through the wall?
What? No.
A giant truck drove through Zany and Nashville's wall.
Where are you going to be? You going to be on the road, buddy?
Dude, you know what, man? I'm just chilling right now, dude. I'm just chilling. I'm waiting to find out. You know, I did a couple gigs and they were fun, but, you know, like I couldn't sell my merch inside, and it was just like, I'm going to take a break. Yeah, and I got to sell merch to make it worth it for me because, you know, I'm killing this internet game, so I'm chilling. I'm chilling.
I love you. Guys, special guest. The guy.
Hey, real quick. Sorry. Check out my cameos. I am on fire on Cameo. Manifestos of love. Check them out. I'm killing this game.
You dropping those?
I'm dropping manifestos.
I'm gonna buy one. I'm gonna buy one from Sam.
Hey, dude, I subscribe to our Patreon. Just let you know that I throw in $5, so I give you that. Yeah, there you go, $5.
I love you, brother. Next to me right now, sitting below me, he's a lot taller. He's 6'4", but you're kind of hunched down. 80 years old, Big Mike Callen, my father. I wanted to bring him on to Conspiracy Social Club, aka Deep Waters. Now, the man has traveled to, how many countries have you been to, do you think, in your life?
Actually, going back to the days when I had global responsibility for Citicorp Investment Bank, we were not 190 countries. I probably made it to all of them one time or another.
The man's been to 190 countries.
Yeah,
Let's start there.
That has no meaning. That just means that you were going and showing the flag and meeting the people that were there.
But you've been to Iraq, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia.
I used to go to Iraq quite a lot. A lot back in the old days. And the only claim to fame that I'll have on my tombstone is I may be the only person you will ever meet who met and talked to Osama bin Laden. And Saddam Hussein, but a lot of people met Saddam in those days. He would have his modulus every Friday.
Why did you meet them?
Well,
because already people think you're deep
family in Saudi Arabia, which is where we had a very large relationship. As you know, you lived for a while. There were 21 bin Laden brothers. It's a very big contracting business. We had a very large banking relationship. So I was in talking to Abu Bakr one time about our business association, and the door opened, and in an Arab environment, you have to realize not like the one we're accustomed to. You could be sitting as we are right now, and a member of the family or somebody well known will walk in and have a seat. Not invited, doesn't have to be. So Osama came in, and he sat between the two brothers over on the sofa. And Abu Bakr said, "Say hello to my brother Osama. He's just back from, I think he had just come back from the Sudan." It was shortly after that, the Saudi government disowned him and kicked him out. But when I got up to leave, about 15 minutes later, the three brothers stood up, and they came over, and we stood and we talked for about 10 minutes through a translator. I should have told him not to do that.
He's got a book right now on his shelf by Steve Cole called The Bin Ladens. He's read everything there is.
There is a very wide variety. The bin Laden brothers were always identified by the mother, and Osama's mother was what they call in the kingdom religious, as was he.
So Sam is this is a podcast where I try to debunk conspiracy theories. Sam is a big believer in conspiracy theories. And you tend not to be.
Can I ask a question, Bryan?
Not tend not to be. I am.
Mr. Callen, are you a lizard person? Are you a lizard person? there's chat boards that believe you might be a lizard person.
Yeah,
Any
they think
thoughts
you're
on
deep state. They think you're, because I always say these things and it creates a mystery around you. But that
I'm
no,
leaving.
no,
No.
hold on. He's not.
I'm sorry. I had to ask. Get out of the way. 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 No more dumb questions. No more dumb questions.
He wanted to leave when you asked him that poignant question, Sam. That's
okay. How about this? What are CFR Christmas parties like? Are they festive? Are they fun? Do you guys do Kwanzaa?
What's a CFR?
No, we do Kwanzaa. Yes, we do.
Oh yeah. Wait, so let's talk a little bit about the global foreign policy. What was it? What is it that you're saying?
The Council of Foreign Relations.
Oh yeah. So wait. Before you start, there's a conspiracy theory that the Council on Foreign Relations is full of sort of this cabal of evil people that are trying to control the world. So could you give us a little insight? You've sat in on that?
Well, I've been a member of the council. I've been a member of the council for over 30 years.
Oh.
So, and I won't say because I live out here, I go to many meetings. That seems to me the most fantastic story I've ever heard. I've heard a few. The Council on Foreign Relations is nothing more than a coffee clutch. That's basically what it is. They've got a very nice premises on Park Avenue. It's one of the very nice buildings. They could sell it today for $80 million. The guy in charge of it rotates, but the guy in charge of it was at the State Department. He was number 2 for a while. I don't think he did all that well there. He was there under Clinton. And they have some ability to attract significant figures. Like, for example, at the council, my own personal experience, I met Gorbachev there. He came and gave a talk when he was visiting the States after he left office. Dan Quayle came one time. We've had a few ex-presidents. Henry Kissinger used to come as.
Is he? What's Henry Kissinger like?
He knows. You've had some. I've actually met Kissinger because you moderated a debate with Kissinger.
You met him. You came to an event when I had him. You met him.
Yeah.
I think every one of those people, and then they have media people like Diane Sawyer comes quite a lot. But, and I haven't seen her on television in 20 years. I don't even know if she still is on. But, I mean, any one of those people that you would tell is some kind of a part of a conspiracy would get a very good laugh out of it. There's no connection between any of them. And it's actually, as a coffee clutch, as a forum, it has lost some of its luster in the last 10 to 15 years, I'd say.
Do you have any questions about it, Sam? What are some of the rumors?
Well, it's. Have you ever heard of the Passar family, sir? I just have a question about that. Have you ever heard of the Passars? Nope, never.
No, I haven't.
When people think of the Illuminati, what do you think of that, sir? And I'm with all love and respect, I'm asking. I would never be disrespectful.
So
it's a term that was coined by media people a long time ago. If you ever had a group of Illuminati around, they wouldn't know they were part of that. I might even have been a part of it at one time when I was a very senior guy at City.
What the hell? Hey, I got a reputation here.
It means that
Illuminati confirmed.
Considered somewhat prominent in the opinion-making circles of whatever administration happens to be current. But you can fall out of that in a big hurry. I would much rather be a part of the literati, not the Illuminati. The Illuminati is a media creation. And if I had one thing to advise you about with all the experience I've had in my life is don't trust the media.
There we go.
Care whether it's right wing or left wing, most of what they say is untrue.
Both right wing and left wing.
Oh yeah. I mean, I wouldn't, because look, they're in the entertainment business. They're not in the education business. People always approach the media as if it's educational, and it's decidedly not educational. It's entertainment. So they would. I'll tell you the first experience I had. I was interviewed on one of the TV stations, a network, and they were during the when you go to the green room, they have somebody that makes you up a little bit before you go on. And the producer came in and he said, Callen, we'd love to have you tonight. We're having a panel discussion, and are you free tomorrow and next week? And what, dear, here's my card. Just call me anytime you want to come on. Well, then I realized, and I never thought of it before, that they've got to fill 365 days, 24/7 of space.
Yeah.
Try to do that sometime.
Yes.
You
Yes.
got to do that. And if you've got a guy that can crack a joke like me, you know, is not going to answer their questions with one word, that's treasure to them. The other thing I learned is that if you're interviewed by Bryan Callen and you're accustomed to watching this channel and it's got 50 people like Bryan Callen is your owner. He owns you. Nobody else can go to you and say, hey, would you come on my interview? They own you. Like Tucker Carlson is particularly jealous of that. So I mean, it's like everything else. It's never what it seems to be.
Go on, Bryan.
No, go ahead, buddy.
Is there anybody in your experience that was not the nicest guy that you met? I mean, I'm not looking for you to say anything, but where you're like, he was a little different, or like he was a little bit more callous than maybe.
Are you talking about a political person?
Yeah. Like someone you met where you're like, ooh, that guy's darkness or something.
Yeah, sure. I mean, Kissinger, for example, was and is an incredibly egotistical person, and he wouldn't even object when you tell him that. He loves himself. He really believes he's the smartest guy in the world. He might even get close to, objectively speaking, being there. For example, if you wanted, every time we wanted him to come and talk to our clients, we had to send an airplane for him. God forbid Henry Kissinger. Well, I can understand that, by the way. I mean, if you're Henry Kissinger, you get onto a commercial flight, they'll never leave you alone. But he's basically very, very egotistical, so all those stories are true. In fact, he's got a brother named Walter, and Walter it doesn't have anything, and not a trace of an accent. And somebody asked him, Walter, why does your brother Henry have an accent and you don't? And he said, because I listen.
How about that?
And Henry never has.
The one thing my father has in common with a lot of conspiracy theorists, though, since the day I
good looks.
No, besides that, by the way, 80 years old. 80 years old.
Stunningly good looking.
80.
How does your dad look younger than you, Bryan?
Yeah, because he's a lizard person.
I wish you could say that.
Now, but here's the thing. He's always had a healthy distrust of government, and is far more in favor of small government than, for example, I am. But you've always been essentially libertarian, always very liberal, always believed in things like gay marriage and legalizing drugs, right? As far back as I can remember.
Well, look, you could make this very simple and short. You can go on forever. You don't want to do that, especially in this form. In 1965, way before you guys were even thought of, I attended the signing ceremony of the Anti-Poverty Act in Washington. And Lyndon Johnson was president, and everybody was all excited. We're going to eradicate poverty. We're going to have a great society at all levels of government. You could make this very terse. At all levels of government since that time, we have spent about $3 trillion. It's very difficult to get your mind around $1 trillion. It's 1,000 billion. It's all the money in the world. There is no, and there never will be, a trillionaire. I can't even imagine it. But if we have a lot of inflation, I suppose it's possible. Nevertheless, at all levels of government, we have done that, and we were going to eliminate poverty. Well, the poverty rate hasn't even been dented, and that was 55 years ago, about the time I got married. And now the latest campaign, whoever you're for, was all about eliminating poverty. but that's what they were doing 55 years ago when they signed that act. And it is a massive failure. A guy who was in government, part of the intelligence community I've known for almost that long time.
Intelligence.
He said to me, you know, Mike, 1 out of every 5 children go to bed hungry in this country. And I said, if that's true, it is a massive indictment of the poverty programs we've had in place for all that time. Now, there's a whole lot of reasons, and this is where you get into a long discussion I'm not going to do unless it's prepared and I was reading from a text or something. But there's a whole lot of reasons that these massive government programs don't work. And it all has to do with the incentive structure of government. So it's a monopoly. That's the first bad thing. It has a whole bunch of people who don't get any immediate feedback like you do in business when you lose customers. And it can't go out of business. It's impossible. So it's a self-perpetuating myth-making machine.
Myth-making, Sam. Sam likes that.
I think the government's job is to provide for our external security, and I think they do a pretty good job. To provide for internal security, we have police forces and things so that robbers can't come in and shoot you, even though there's enough of that going on. And then the third thing is to prevent monopoly.
Well, I disagree with you, but that's okay because I think government does a lot more than that.
Why is that significant?
Well, no, I mean, I just think you're missing out on the fact that the Department of Energy.
I ask that every show, sir. I go, why is that important that you don't agree
Sounds
with
like
me?
you read a book.
Yeah, I read a book. I think there's a lot about government we don't understand. The Department of Energy, Department of Commerce, Department of Agriculture feeds a lot of people that couldn't be fed otherwise.
Yeah, you're assuming you read Michael Lewis's book, and you're assuming that the private sector couldn't do most of that.
And they couldn't.
Yeah.
And if they've
never been asked to, but whatever the private sector is going to do is going to be done a lot better and more efficiently than the government does.
That's a whole different argument. I'd love to have that argument with you. I'd love to, but
why, Bryan? Do you want to lose the family too? Come on, man.
No,
Your dad is like lighting you up right now.
Yeah, no. Yes, I know. We'll have that argument off air because
I'll give you this. There's no constituency in this country for small government. Doesn't exist. So you're going to win.
What do you mean there's no constituency? Oh, you mean this?
No, there is no government. If you say who is for more poverty acts, who is for immigration, free immigration, I can tell you people who are for that, and they have a group around them. They have lobbyists and one thing and another. There is nobody. There's no lobbyist in Washington, and I used to do a lot of that running around Capitol Hill. There is nobody who says we want smaller government. They may say it in some general sense, but then you say, okay, we're going to take away your Social Security, take away your Medicare, take away your aid to families to dependent children. Oh, no, I don't want any of that. Okay, then we're going to take away defense. No. So once you get past the entitlement programs, everything else is a rounding error in the government's budget.
Well, there's also the management of nuclear waste. There's also investment in innovative ideas.
It's all around
and like immunotherapy, Siri, GPS, internet, all that stuff was started and developed by the Department of Defense and Department of Energy, Tesla. But we can get into that. But Sam, since my dad's talking about government, he doesn't trust government. He also believes the moon landing happened. And you don't. And I want to know why my father trusts the government when they say that they put somebody on the moon and they're supposed to be incompetent, but somehow they were able to do that. And one of the things they say, Big Mike, is that—
Big Mike!
Yeah, I call him Big Mike. Conspiracy theorists say that how the hell were they able to talk to somebody when they're on the moon? How the hell were they able to communicate with somebody that far away in 1963? When was it?
Well,
68, I think. Right?
If you postulate that we did not put a man on the moon, but it was a giant hoax, and it was done for, I've heard, several different reasons, then what you're saying is you don't know how the government works, the federal government works. You don't have any idea. If you ask anyone that's ever worked in government, and you say, I don't think we put a man on the moon, this was a big hoax, they laugh their asses off. Because in order for that to be pulled off, the ability of, you'd have to have a conspiracy that involves 50,000 people that have kept their mouths shut for 50 some years. And it would cover at least, I can count them now, 9 nations that were at tracking stations and involved in the technology. So to have all that done, it's much easier to put it in.
So the conspiracies.
Why wouldn't they have gone? Why haven't we gone back?
Gone back
To the moon.
Why haven't we?
Yeah, and there's just weird things, sir, where it's like, oh, we lost all the data. All the data's gone.
No,
like,
we didn't lose all the data. What we did was we defeated the Russians. Look, in one sentence, the proof of having actually gone to the moon is that the Russians stopped trying. See, there was a race to get there, and the Russians, after we got there, stopped trying. By the way, getting to the moon, from one point of view, may sound like an astounding feat, but it's really not. I mean, it's really not that astounding. We have put vehicles on Mars, not people, but we put vehicles on Mars. There are 2 major reasons that we didn't go back to the moon and do it again. The first reason is there was no reason to do so anymore because we won the Cold War. And, there was just no purpose in showing the world that we're better technologically. Everybody knew that. The Russians had nothing to show for it. And the second reason was that it's incredibly expensive. And there, as I said, it didn't have, Maribel? Yeah. Could I have a coffee? Thanks a lot. The second reason is that, it just was so expensive that you didn't have a lobby, you didn't have a source of sustenance for all these programs, as somebody who is a very large groups of people that are very much interested, who are very much interested in whatever it is that they're getting out of this. Very small constituency for the moonshot, for the whole space program. I mean, nobody's going to go and live on the moon, whatever fiction that you may have. So we had been up there. We knew what it was made of. We knew most of that anyway. And it wasn't very far away. 250,000 miles is nothing. So there's a lot going on, as Bryan will tell you from Lewis's book, in terms of planets that are further out, like Mars and things like that.
So there's no child labor camps on the moon, on the dark side of the moon? Is that what
only a couple?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, let's not make a big deal out of a couple of them.
So let me just ask one thing, because would you say, sir, that there is a possibility of the government lying to the people in order to gain a certain action, a certain event to happen, such as like the Gulf of Tonkin?
There is a strong motive for administrations to spin, and they do it every day. That's a totally different item.
They spin the narrative. They spin information. They lie.
The government is so big; it covers such a huge area. The U.S. economy is so enormous that any president or Secretary of Treasury can get up, Federal Reserve Chairman, can get up and make a speech which emphasizes all the positives. And they do it. But we have in place, and this is why it's a great country. It's not because of all the things that all the politicians say. The reason it's a great country is it's almost impossible to get away with any of that stuff for very long because you have a hostile press. If you talk to any president or cabinet officer after they have been in office for a while, they will all tell you that they hate the media. It's not just Donald Trump. They all do. Even Obama will tell you that. the goddamn media, you can't trust them, and you know and the reason that they hate it, it's a good reason actually for us, for all of us citizens. It's because they question everything you say, because they know that everything you say is self-serving, and that you know how to say it very smoothly and use all the right words. So they're immediately out there trying to prove that you're a liar.
Do you in your time, have you seen, like, does the media seem even more nasty than ever in the last 4 years with, you know, the arrival of Donald Trump? And
yeah,
is Donald Trump anything different than those
yes.
before them?
Yes. And I have to hear, I've got a Donald Trump story. I'm going to tell you. And then I'll,
boom, 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 boom.
Donald Trump was a real estate guy in New York. I was in charge of city's real estate business, and others too. And we had a relationship with the Trumps. So Trump was inviting our relationship managers on his yacht for parties and his helicopter to fly down to Atlantic City and so forth. And I found out that our guys were doing that. So I wrote a memo, and the memo said, no one is allowed to accept any invitations to those type of affairs by Trump. Our account officer made a big mistake. He went and told Donald that his boss had said this. So Donald calls me up and says, we've got to meet and talk. And I knew what it was about. So I went over to the Trump Tower. The first thing I noticed when I walked in was a 9x12 tableau, which had every magazine cover he had ever been on, including the Southwest Manhattan Real Estate Gazette and Business Week and so forth. And I said to myself, this guy is sick. But I will tell you, he oozed charm from every pore. He never brought up the issue. And when I got back to the office, I fired the account officer naturally. And he said he had a job with Trump, which didn't come through. I can't imagine why not. Here is why Donald Trump is different. I don't think we've had a president as mentally ill as he is. No, he really is. He's clearly a narcissist. And he's got other things wrong with him. And he has assaulted the truth beyond any president in our history. There is none that comes even close. They'll all spin. They'll all leave things out and put other things in. Trump, anytime he has been in front of the camera, which for presidents is about 10 times a day, he has lied. If you can find one time he's been in front of a camera for more than 10 minutes without telling 2 or 3 lies, I'd love to see it. It's a total assault on truth, and I'll tell you, an organization I don't have any faith in, the Washington Post, has kept track and it published a book, and it's called Donald Trump's Assault on Truth, and they are up to 20,000 lies he has told, and I'm sure by now it's 30,000. So the point is, even though it's a Washington Post, and I wouldn't trust them because they would vote for Karl Marx if they could. The facts are that they say, here is a video clip of him saying this, and here is a speech of him saying that. And he said the moon is made out of green cheese. Okay, now let's look at the facts. The moon is not made out of green cheese. And he goes through it. It's a boring book because it's one lie after another. So the guy is appealing to 70 million Americans that struggled out of the 4th grade.
That's condescending, though. I mean, I think that's the guy.
Well, sure.
But I mean, the guy. Not everybody who voted for Trump and not everybody who supports Trump is dumb, a racist, or any of that. A lot of them are people who are just so dissatisfied with business as usual with government that they were desperate enough to try Trump.
I agree with that.
Okay, good. That's important. Because I don't want. Yeah. Because
the only problem I have with it is they voted for him. I mean, 70 million voted for him again.
Well, they were voting for, but who was up against him? Biden.
A very innocuous milquetoast guy in Joe Biden. And they may have been invited. See, I voted against Hillary Clinton. I mean, for me, she's the Antichrist.
Oh, snaps. There we go. There we go.
See, my dad's all over the place, but there are a lot of things that conspiracy theorists would agree on, and a lot of people that things that they. But it's funny because he's hard to pin down with his political point of view.
Well, no, but I have a right to be totally against Hillary Clinton, but I'm not totally against Joe Biden. I would be totally against Kamala Harris, and there are people that voted against her. But there's nothing to vote against in Joe Biden. He's been in government for 50 years. Tell me some position he has that you object to.
Are you concerned about this Chinese connection that's coming out? 10% for the big guy. Are you worried about any of that, where he's taking money from the CCP? And your thoughts on China, sir, and what China represents? Like, how much of this rhetoric that we're hearing right now do you feel is actual, and how much of it is just more of the military-industrial complex trying to rev up a Cold War?
Well, again, you're using these terms as people do, and I'm not criticizing you, even though
you can. You can. Light me up, dude. I flew in first grade.
Complex. Let's take that.
There's no military-industrial complex. Okay.
Dwight Eisenhower, before your birth, Dwight Eisenhower made a speech when he was leaving office. And he said, 8 years in office, there's one thing I want to tell the American people. We've got to be very careful in this Cold War we're in, where we're spending vast amounts of money competing with the Soviet Union. Remember, in those days, we thought the Soviet Union was out ahead of us. They never were even close. But anyway, we thought they were. So we've got this huge industry. And I used to bank them. We've got this enormous industry that we are counting on to build weapons for, so we can defend ourselves against these evil communists. And they and the military over there in the Pentagon are working together for an objective we have laid out for them to achieve. And we're spending billions of dollars. In those days, $1 billion meant something. And we got to watch out. We got to watch out that we don't have too much power concentrated in their hands. Okay. Now, we had relationships with all of the major defense contractors, and I used to go and visit them all the time. And the one thing they would all admit, including Boeing, is that our main customer is the Department of Defense. And our job here is to keep them happy. That's the main thing. And by the way, when they say we want this kind of a weapon system and we go in and bid and give them a proposal, we're up against about 5 others who also want that deal. And we're eating each other's lunch, and we're not allowed to talk to each other. And in fact, they don't. And we're very heavily controlled. So I sit and scratch my head and say, military industrial compound, they don't even talk to each other. They're not allowed to because of antitrust laws. And this is very severely policed. So I say to myself, oh, Jesus. And because the American public is convinced that there's something going on, when they build the F-35, which has only recently been completed, every time there is a problem with a really sophisticated and complicated system like that, the contractor is the one that's got to, cough up the cash. So what they thought they were going to make on this, they make about half if they're lucky. So it's much more complex than just a military. I think people have in mind a smoke-filled room when they say those things. None of that is true. It doesn't work that way.
What about China, though? He said, because I one time we were having a conversation about how China was taking over the world, and then you basically said, I don't agree.
Why did he leave? Is it something I said?
Yeah. He probably has to go pee or something. I think he was. Oh, he's back. He's back.
What about, what did you say?
About I'll wait till this guy's here. So I just said, what about China? Because we were talking about how China is making these huge strides in artificial intelligence, is making inroads into our political system, buying politicians and getting their foothold in the United States and controlling the United States. And you you at dinner said you had a different point of view.
Yeah, I do. I have a different point of view, which it grows out of the fact that we were going to be taken over by the Russians. There was no doubt about it. We might as well all start learning Russian. They've got all the wonderful, marvelous abilities and strengths and secrets and weapons, and they're going to take us over. No question, no question. There was a whole group of the American press that was singing that song. It was, of course, it was all total bullshit. I used to go to Russia every 3 months, and I went on a tour of a couple of their factories. In fact, it was making furniture, and my guy, the guy I was working with, and they were showing me cardboard cutouts that they would trace in a cut. And I looked at all that, and I said, you know, we were making furniture like this in the 1940s. I don't mean to insult you, but this is silly. And he said, listen, he was a guy about my age, so he wasn't young. And he said, listen, talk to anybody that worked in this economy, this command economy, back in those days of Stalin and Khrushchev and the rest. And they'll tell you we could not believe that you guys believed we were so far ahead. We weren't ahead. We were always like this. It was propaganda. Did we have some rockets? Yeah. We had some rockets, and we would use them in every possible way to impress you. So your intelligence community would think that we were way out ahead. And it was never true. And we found that out. Oh, then it was Japan. Then Japan's going to take us over. Books, lots of books written on Japan. I read them all. And at various times, there were various people that were going to run the world. Now, of course, it's China. China came from nowhere, an impoverished hermit kingdom with a bunch of people all dressed in the same suit. We took him and his sister there way back when they first opened up.
1982, right?
Yeah, but they were all a bunch of automatons. I mean, it was incredibly bad. Okay, so now because they're smart, they're cheap, and there's an endless number of them, Deng Xiaoping said, okay, why don't we get rich? Why don't we go out and manufacture a lot of this stuff? They'll give us all, they'll show us how to do it. We'll do it and sell it back to them. And they've been, if they hadn't been successful at that, I don't know what they would have been successful at. So they got $600 billion in the bank, in the central bank of China. And they have, you know, they're in the thing. I could see behind you things that were made in China. In this room we're in, there's a bunch of stuff that's made in China. Everybody's got stuff made in China. And you know what? Our living standards are much higher as a result of it. But and this one thing Trump was on to, we had four times larger consumer market than any place else in the world, European Union or anything else. Without that, China sends their 350 million laborers back to the rice fields, and their ass is grass. They are toast if they ever tried to do that. So it's not, China doesn't have the power. We have the power. I don't think we should use it. My daughter said, the South China Sea, that's not an American lake. You know, now that they're building a Navy, they ought to have some influence in the South China Sea. The only thing I'm worried about with China is Taiwan, but they've got a lot of problems. I'm talking about China. They've got a lot of problems that have an enormous debt load, absolutely enormous debt load. And they've got state-owned enterprises, the SOEs, a lot of them that Xi Jinping has brought back after his predecessor got rid of. Xi Meng and some of the others got rid of all that stuff.
Good accent.
They brought them back. And it's going to be, it's just sucking resources like mad. It's crazy to do that in the name of an ideology. China is not a problem. It's an opportunity.
China's not a problem. It's an opportunity. Damn, Sam. A lot of information we're getting hit with here.
A lot of information. Do you, as you take a look at what's going on right now, you know, we've heard Bryan use words that he's read in books like Marxism and stuff like that. Do you, what are your thoughts on that? Everybody thinks Marxism is now here through the schools. We see it starting to enter, a lot of people thinking entertainment. and stuff like that. Is your thoughts on Marxism making a movement in the United States?
Marxism was dead many, many, many years ago. Marxism and socialism is responsible for the death, mass murder of millions of people, poor bastards, and the starvation and impoverishment of hundreds of millions. The problem is that when you get a Kamala Harris and this Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, they're too young to remember any of that. If you're my age, it was like yesterday. For them, they're suckered in by all the propaganda and all the false, little flags that were flown out there in the name of equality and all these wonderful things. They're too dumb and uneducated to know any better. And it's very difficult to educate people like this, but bad ideas die 1,000 deaths. And Marxism is another one that's coming along. If you want to make everybody poor, adopt a Marxist strategy. There are books that can tell you, it can teach all this to you. There's a guy named Stephen Kotkin, and I know this is asking a lot, and most people would never do this, but he has just finished 2 books of a trilogy. The 3rd book hasn't come out yet. And I've read 2 of them, the first 2.
I'm looking at them. On Stalin?
On Stalin.
They're this thick. They're right over there, and they're all worn. The guy's read. Jesus Christ, life's too short.
Well, you can also listen to them, by the way. You guys drive around in Los Angeles traffic a lot. You can listen to these. You can also go to YouTube and see Stephen Kotkin, the historian from Princeton. He does, 1-hour lectures. You can take that. And he talks about the books and what the message was. But look, here's the number, one of the most astounding numbers I've ever heard. And it's very much part of Marxism. It's not a one-off. In 1937 and 1938, the NKVD in the Soviet Union under Stalin.
What is the NKVD? It was like the KGB, right?
It's the predecessor to the KGB. The NKVD,
which is like their CIA.
The NKVD executed 900,000 people, and all of them were innocent. There was absolutely not even one bit of evidence against any of them, but they were deemed by Stalin and his people to be enemies of the people. Now, I have spoken to, and I think through you, Tim Snyder, the historian at Yale, who wrote Bloodlands, which the London Economist said every sentient human being should read once, then read again, then read a 3rd time. And without going into what it was, Tim Snyder got his research from the Kremlin archives, which was made available to Western scholars by Boris Yeltsin. Boris Yeltsin died in 2007 as one of the real heroes, because he said you can come in and see everything the communists did. And Tim Snyder and Stephen Kotkin went into the archives and they found single-space, dual-column, 10-page names that you could, like the Manhattan telephone directory in the old days. And on each page, Stalin's initial was. And the last page, it was his signature. And that group was going to pay the supreme price. And they wiped them out in about a month's time. Just went out and grabbed them, took them out of their houses. That's Marxism for you. And then he starved millions in the Ukraine, which if you don't know about, I think you're, as a citizen of the world, you're required to know the starvation in the Ukraine. And one last point on that. There's a guy named Walter Duranty who should burn in hell for the rest of his life, the rest of his death for eternity. I don't want to be extreme. Walter Duranty was the New York Times correspondent in Moscow. And he was the one guy that the Stalin regime did not require to have his copy reviewed for censorship before it went out. The one correspondent.
New York Times, ladies and gentlemen.
And he got a Pulitzer Prize. Which it was withdrawn
because
when we found out.
Because he apology. He was a Stalin apologist.
He denied the Ukraine starvation campaign was underway. He denied that they were killing 3 million kulaks, which are these more middle-class peasants, if you will, that own some land and things. All of these horrible things. And Walter Durante, who was a communist himself, was the New York Times guy there, feeding us back to the Times. And all of our pseudo-intellectuals who are reading the Times and think they knew something. And if you want a conspiracy theory,
yes,
you should not think that those days are over forever, especially when it comes to a publication like the Times.
See, he doesn't like the New York Times or the Washington Post.
I think we could see that in media a lot. Like there's like, you know, the Mockingbird media, CIA. What are your thoughts on that? Like the intelligence, their influence on the media, the propaganda. You've talked about that. Do you see that playing out right now in what's going on in the country? And is that a problem? Do we have a problem with, has our intelligence service gotten too strong, and are they here for the country? I mean, I'm sure there's giant parts of each of the intelligence companies that are good patriots. But
you know, we all use the term CIA. You should know that in Washington, D.C., there are 22 different intelligence agencies, all of them totally independent. The U.S. Navy has one, the U.S. Army has one, Marine Corps has its own intelligence agency. So CIA doesn't have anything to do with those people. And I would just tell you that the CIA is given much, much more credit than it has. But everybody tries to use each other. The CIA, which I have been, you know, it's been in a book, so I don't make a big deal of denying it. It would be silly. I was involved for a while when I was abroad, and I had access to people that they found useful and they were trying to recruit and all of that. But they are given much more credit than they deserve, much more credit. Every time something happens, it's the CIA. And they have so many constraints since the Rockefeller Commission. They have so many constraints on them. They can't kill anybody anymore. They used to be.
Well, that's not, there are, no, the CIA has a robust assassination program.
No.
Well, somebody does, because the United States still, we do.
No.
The United States does have an assassination program.
I know.
And that's been written about. What we do, the military assassinates people, or the military. I mean, that is coordinated by by our intelligence apparatus.
If you're talking about a helicopter attack on a so-called terrorist camp, you're right. If you're talking about the CIA sneaking along like the old days in Hollywood movies and shooting somebody, it doesn't happen anymore. It hasn't happened since the Rockefeller Commission in the late 70s.
What I'm saying is that we definitely have task forces, units that go and do these kinds of things in foreign countries in a very clandestine way.
That is not true.
And in fact,
leave it at that, because you're going to believe it. It's part of your lexicon. So
no, it's what I've read. I've read it from very reputable sources.
Yeah, I know. You've read a lot of things. So have I. The key is to know what you read is plausible and what's not. You've decided to believe that. We did have that in the early 70s. And it got completely out of hand because the Soviets were doing it, so we were doing it back. But it was mainly directed at Soviet targets and Soviet assets. The CIA has no authority today, and anybody that engaged in that would probably end up in jail.
Well, we'll just agree to disagree on that, because I happen to think that the CIA.
No, I know it's a popular.
The CIA has a robust. The CIA. Whether it's the CIA or it's a defense intelligence, there is an intelligence apparatus that is actively involved in killing terrorists.
I will introduce you to some senior CIA, retired now, some senior CIA people. At an appropriate time, I will introduce you and let them give you the story.
It may not be CIA. I'm just saying the United States has
no U.S. government agent.
Is there a shadow government, Mr. Callen?
The U.S. military.
Oh, wait, this is a good question.
Is there a shadow government? Is there a deep
Is there a
state?
shadow government? Is there a deep state?
No.
No?
No.
Why?
What do you mean, why? But see, what proof do you have of a shadow government? That is something that is said by people who are generally out of power or on their way out of power about a shadow government because they lost a fight. Trump will talk about that now. But what does the shadow government do? This is another good story, and Hollywood loves it. But is there any truth to it? Well, start asking some fundamental questions. Who are these shadow government people? What do they do? Where are they located in government?
Deep
what
in the bowels. In the bowels of Langley, in the bowels.
Yeah, they're down in the bowels.
Have you been to Antarctica, sir? Have you ever been to Antarctica?
I was once, yeah.
Whoa!
See, you guys.
Whoa! What went
everywhere.
down there? What are aliens like? Are they cool?
I wouldn't recommend you go there. I'll tell you that millions of penguins is really quite a sight.
Yeah.
I thought I saw the loss of them when the Catholic nuns graduated me.
Yeah, my dad went to the seminary and then decided that Jesus wasn't real.
You don't believe in Jesus, sir?
Oh, that's a question I don't answer anymore. I've been down that road.
Respect.
And it doesn't do any good. But I'll tell you, it's very, very interesting. Hey, you got a good head of hair. You should take off your. I've got an LA Dodger hat downstairs.
Yep.
Yeah, I know. I should wear less hats, but I just had kids and I don't have time to shower. I'm just running and gunning all the time. When you met aliens, right? Were they cool?
When I met aliens?
Yeah. Were they cool? Were they nice people? What language
were very
did they
different
speak?
from the common image, and the main reason is that these aliens come from planets where there's very little carbon, and all of our organisms are based on a carbon. Carbon. We have so much of it, and it can bind to make long molecules and things, and they don't have that, so they're kind of blobby. They're kind of blobs. They're a very
blobs.
different life form.
See, that's him. You're getting a lot of information here, dude.
Dude, this has been
And
great.
the main reason you say you don't believe in conspiracies is because, one, it's really hard to keep secrets, but two, it's hard to get a group of people to be that organized over a long period of time.
No. Let me approach it the other way, which is how I do it. And I'll use a current example of a lot of the kooks out here in Utah. There is this thing that we all are aware of, and we are probably proud to say we are part of, and that's called the scientific method, right? Now, the scientific method has made enormous progress in the last 200 years mainly, and it continues to rapidly accelerate in the progress it makes, so that now a lot of the beliefs, even when I was a kid, that isn't very long ago, I mean, it's a while back, but very long ago, have now been totally dispelled. So the question is, why have a lot of these beliefs that were common in my family, for example, why does no one believe that anymore unless they are mentally ill? It's because of fact and evidence and analysis, the scientific method applied to everyday life. So we now understand what a virus is. We could develop this vaccine. We could never have done that in the 1950s. We couldn't do it in 1918 because, the Asian flu, the Spanish flu, could have killed as many as 100 million now, a lot of scholars are saying, as opposed to the 50 million as a generally accepted number. If that happened today, we would have had a vaccination in no time. We probably would have lost 1 million. Why? Because we know how to go about this, how to examine the phenomenon of this virus. We understand a lot about viruses and how they work. Scientific American, for example, about 2 issues ago, had an incredible issue all devoted to the coronavirus. It was really worth the time of reading. And you knew we were going to get this vaccine based on messenger RNA and all that. But that was a language that was not even available. So when I say come in, I mean this. Show me data, show me evidence, and then show me your analysis and what conclusion follows from it. Conspiracy theories start with a conclusion. That's where they start. And then they say, we're going to go out, and they engage in this thing called confirmation bias. I'm going to go out and find a reason, now that I've reached the conclusion I want, that this conclusion's correct. And that goes on around here. Let's take the current situation of this election was a fraud. Another lie by Donald Trump. But he lies about everything. So, you know, if you, was there, let's see, how many do we have here? We have 70 plus 70, 100, let's call it 150 million people across 50 states went in and voted. Was there some fraud? Yes, there has to be. Probabilistically, there has to be. How about previous elections? Yes, there had to be. How about future elections? No doubt about it. Is there enough fraud to overturn the election? There's absolutely no evidence whatsoever for that conclusion. None. Now, if you love Donald, as a lot of these kooks do, and you wanted him to win, then you're going to say there was massive fraud in this election. But by the way, it wasn't there when Ronald Reagan, who we liked, won. It wasn't there when George W. Bush won or H.W. won. When our guy won, there was no fraud. But when our guy loses, there was massive fraud.
Well, but by the way, the Democrats, when Trump won, they had their own conspiracy about how the Russians won it for him. So both sides seem to do a lot of this.
Well, yeah, and the Russian conspiracy thing was examined by the federal government under Robert Mueller, who was anybody's upstanding citizen who had years in charge of the FBI and was widely admired across the aisle, both sides. And as soon as he came along and said, look, we spent $30 million in 2 years, we could find no conspiracy or collusion with the Russians. And then the Democrats said, oh, we don't like that, so we have decided that you're a fraud. You know, you see a pattern here after a while, and you just ignore and dismiss it. Show me the evidence. Go at it the way I say. Show me the data. Show me the evidence. Show me your analysis, and then show me your conclusion. Don't show me your conclusion and work backwards trying to find the evidence.
Is politics all theater, in your opinion? Or is there really something going on between, let's say, Trump and the DNC and what looks like Trump and the Republican establishment? Because my whole theater is like, yeah, they may all be puppets, but each of these puppets are fighting for control over a government that could dish out billions, if not trillions of dollars in government contracts. That's a very powerful position. It's kind of what everybody's always thought about, you know, governor of Chicago, right? We've always heard that like it's shady politics in Chicago, and the mayor gets to dole out all the city contracts to his boys who have, you know, these giant construction businesses and stuff like that. Is that possible that's going on in Hollywood, that there is a, you know, maybe they're all puppets, but these puppets are fighting over the who sits on the throne?
Well, I have had a chance to talk to one former and 2 sitting presidents, at least have a conversation with them, you know, at a luncheon table or something. And I've always asked them one question, and other senior people like Kissinger and so on. And that question is, what's it like to be in that job? What do we see versus what it really is? And, you know, Harry Truman was famous for this. He said, the problem with the presidency is you push buttons and then you find out the buttons aren't connected to anything. So, again, I would go so far, this may sound a little extreme to you, and in fact it is, but I'm bombing for effect here, to be in any position in the U.S. government and make a lot of personal money from what you do, the decisions you make, I think is impossible. And the reason I think it's impossible is that if you're a Republican, the Democrats are watching you. They've got armies, legions of lawyers, lawmakers, senators, representatives are watching every step you take. And surrounding all of this money that it's spent is an elaborate system of control where you have everybody in the act. And it's very expensive. It's very complicated. There are several layers that you've got to go through all the time. And I just don't see how it could ever be done. Now, if you're talking about the local level, where you've got a kingpin mayor like Richard Daley in Chicago, that may be something else, but I have no knowledge of that. But I'll tell you, Lori Lightfoot, the current mayor of Chicago, got her job despite nobody would have believed that a gay woman living with another one who happens also to be African American could possibly run a city like Chicago, but she did it. The main reason she did it is that she said there's been enough corruption in our government for many years. Vote for me, and they voted for her, and she's in office. You can bet that Raul Manuel, who feels that he's been maligned and everybody before him, is looking and watching Laura every step she takes and saying, you're a crook, but you've got to have the evidence. You've got to have the proof. When you make an accusation like that, they immediately set up a bipartisan commission and they say, okay, we've got all the lawyers and money we want. We're going to investigate you from one side to the other. Believe me, if they don't find anything, like in this Russian collusion stuff, they don't find anything, it isn't there.
Do you, there's this whole push from the left side. I have friends who do this. I'm not this into that, but this push for socialism. Do you find that we have corporate socialism already, where we're bailing out too big to fail? And your thoughts on these banks that play crazy, like Goldman Sachs? I don't know how many of them you know, but when they set together this real estate portfolio, telling their investors to invest in it and then taking out insurance on it, that it
you're talking about privatizing your gains and socializing your losses.
Yes.
Too big to fail.
Yes.
Yeah, you're talking
your thoughts on that.
I'm a capitalist, but I am very much against crony capitalism. And when you got government as big as it is, you had to have lobbyists down in Washington. When I was in charge of that for Citicorp, I was embarrassed as hell, and I'd walk into our main lobbyist's office down there, and I'd see a picture of him standing there with President Bush, 41, and Laura along with him and his wife. And I'm sure it was just a picture they'd taken. What is this bullshit? I mean, what were you there for? What was your purpose? What do we have this whole office here for? And of course, it has to be there because what they're trying to do is influence legislation Congress is considering. And if they don't hear from the industry, they're going to come up with some law that is going to do a hell of a lot of damage, not just to us, the bank, but in general. Because I got on an elevator one time with a senator, and he turned around and he said, "You got 5 minutes to tell me everything you know about SDRs." He was going to a hearing, and he was going to go and have to vote. 5 minutes to tell me what you know about SDRs. And I said, "Senator, I couldn't even give you the headline in 5 minutes." But that's what they deal with. Imagine being a senator. You're dealing with the whole world. Tell me all about the Ukraine and the guy that was working with Hunter Biden. I want to know all about it. Oh my God, what are you crazy? It's impossible. So we've created a monster, and the corporations have to become something of a monster to interact with it. But I don't approve any of that. I've been a critic of it forever.
You've been a critic of the fact that government, like big banks will socialize, they'll privatize their gains, and then as soon as they make a huge mistake with other people's money, they get the government to bail them out. So you're a big critic of too big to fail, aren't you?
I am, but when people say to me, "What would you do?" in Federal Reserve governors have asked, "All right, Callen, you're a wise ass. We saw you on television. What would you do if you were in our place?" I don't have an answer. Should I let them go broke so all those people who had deposits with them lose their money? These are all poor people. I mean, people of modest means. What would that do?
Yeah.
Teach them a lesson? That's ridiculous.
What is your favorite Bryan Callen project that he did? What did you enjoy the most? Was it
my childhood?
Mad TV. Bryan on Mad TV.
Listen, we gotta wrap this up.
My final question.
Go ahead.
Do Rothschilds eat children? That's my final question. That's my final question. I'll never ask anything
Do the
again.
Rothschilds
Do
eat
they
children?
eat the children? Do
Do
they
the
throw
Rothschilds
hot
control the
sauce
world?
on them?
Do the Rothschilds control the world? Do they eat children?
Rothschilds, I'll say two things about if you want to talk about the Rothschilds. First of all, there are three different parts of the Rothschild family. Two of them don't even talk to each other. Secondly, they've seen much better days than they have now. If you were going to do a major financial project in Europe, you're not even going to bother talking to the Rothschilds. So maybe their reputation has far outlived reality, but I don't think the reality was ever whatever people thought it was.
My dad knows a lot, doesn't he? He's done some reading.
It was an honor and a privilege. I love your son, sir. You put out a wonderful human being, and it was a pleasure talking to you.
Him?
80 years old. Give us
wonderful.
You're 80. Have you met my other son?
Yeah. You're 80. You're 80 years old. You're 80 years old with a mind.
You keep saying I'm 80 years old. I think we got past that.
You've got a very sharp mind. Your body's sharp. Your mind's sharp.
How tall is your dad?
He's 80 years old.
You're always criticizing my body.
He's 6'4". He's 6'4".
And how tall are you?
I'm 5'11".
No,
what?
I'm 6 feet in shoes. Now here's the question. Give us some advice for young people listening. Tell us about give us a piece of advice in all seriousness, and what are some of the more important things to keep in mind as you navigate through life?
For me, it's intellectual growth, which should happen every day. And, there is no day when now I've learned what I have to learn. There's no such thing as graduating from an institution of learning. It doesn't exist. It's some formal symbolism. But, I see the people around today, 25, 30, 35 years old, they're ignorant. And some of them have PhD, one of them that we're very close to here. I respect what they've accomplished, but they think they've learned something. They haven't learned anything. There's just too much, just way too much to learn.
This is coming from a man who plays, who's learning the guitar and practices Italian every day.
That's wonderful. Honor and a privilege, sir. Thank you for putting up with my questions. I appreciate that.
Sam, you're the best.
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the conversation.
You're the best, Sam. I love you.
I love you, Bryan. Love all the Callens, class acts. All the Callens are class acts.
Thank you very much.
Phoenix, Arizona, stand up live. I'm there December 31st, January 1, January 2.
And here is his son.
Port Charlotte, Florida. Visani Theater, January 7th to the 8th and 9th. Port Charlotte, Florida, Visani Theater. I don't know where that is. Nashville, Tennessee, February 11th through the 13th. I'm at Zanies. Before that, I'm at Chicago, Schaumburg. I don't know the exact date, but I'll find it for you guys. And Sam, I love you. You're the best. And thanks for listening.
Check out my cameos, dog. Cameo.com/Sam Tripoli. Check it out. Chin, it's a pleasure as always, Chin. You talk too much this episode, but that's okay.
Chin, you're the best. Thanks, buddy. Thanks, Sam.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for everything.
Big Mike
was the best.
Later, guys.
Bye.